In today's video, I'm following along with Katie Jobling's 3-day workshop. It's the Painterly Roses workshop, and it's designed to help participants create loose, expressive roses with more confidence. It's a world away from the style I've painted roses in the past. The first thing that's different to how I'd normally approach a painting is we don't start with a pencil sketch. We go straight to creating a painted sketch of the roses in the jar. I was surprised that this was all done in pink, because the jar doesn't end up with hardly any pink in it at the end. The aim right now is to break down and block in the basic shapes. I really like this reference photo. It's just the kind of thing I would have chosen to paint when I was painting regularly. This first day of this workshop was so much fun, just applying paint onto the canvas like a toddler. I loved it, and I had high hopes for day 2. Katie recommends using artist or student grade paints, but I'm sticking to my budget paints because I just feel less bothered about wasting them, and they've served me well in the past. But as we go along, the limitations become quite clear. When I put in the stems, I make the mistake of painting a straight line right to the bottom of the jar, which ignores the water and the way it distorts the stems, so I'll go back later and fix that. Part 2, day 2, and things started to go downhill a bit. Katie recommended spending more time looking at the reference than you do at your painting, which in the past was something that came quite intuitively. But I was splitting my attention between the reference, my painting, and the video of the workshop, trying desperately to keep up with Katie. And so I half apply the paint where I see it on my reference, and half where I think Katie's applying it, and overall, it doesn't look as much like the reference as I want it to. The jar is kind of stumpy, and the brush strokes feel too wide. It starts looking more like a cartoon of an Impressionist painting, and by the end of this session, I'm a bit despondent. The colours recommended in the workshop are titanium white, cadmium red, cadmium orange, primary yellow, and phthalo blue. Katie recommends small, medium, and large round brushes, and I think the selection that I'm using at this point is probably too big for a piece of A4 canvas paper. But that's just another lesson learned. Part 3, and it's time to refine the painting. We start off with some orange tinted highlights. I'll admit I hadn't clocked that there were peachy tones in this pink rose, but once it was pointed out, I saw them on all 3 roses. Once again, it feels like the brush I'm using is too big. Now we go in and add slightly darker orange strokes to help create more dimension. There's a lot less blending in Impressionist style art, and that was difficult to get used to. My tendency is to keep blending and applying brush strokes gingerly to get a smooth outcome. But the lesson I came away with was to let the brush strokes do the work, let the layers build up, and let the piece come together that way. This actually gave me enough confidence that while I waited for part 3 of the workshop to come out, I decided I'd try my hand at my first Impressionist portrait. The video for that will be up on the channel next week, so subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. My normal style has always been towards the realism end of the spectrum, which just means representing things as close to how you see them as possible. Classic, traditional art is typically considered realistic, whereas Impressionism is much looser and freer than that. The goal is to give a suggestion or an impression of the subject. When I was younger, I didn't really appreciate Impressionist paintings and artists very much. I also underestimated how hard it is to make paintings in this style. I was always focused on drawing or painting as close to what I saw as possible. That is, until I was in my 20s, and I started to question the point of that when photography exists. I mean, if you want a perfectly reproduced image of a landscape, a portrait, or a bouquet of flowers, you can take a photo of it yourself, or even better, get a photographer's version of it instead. Don't get me wrong, realistic artists can take creative liberties, but that's never been my strength. I've always just tried to copy what I see as closely as I can. But now I'm getting back into art after a break. I feel like it's time to become a beginner again and try things I haven't tried before. And this workshop is part of that. Now ultimately, it's become a game of placing brushstrokes where I see the colours. I found a smaller round brush which helped with more detail work, and that's making a difference. I now go back and fiddle here and there, trying to adjust the petals to be more like the reference. This takes quite a lot longer than I expected, but I feel like it's necessary to make the painting more expressive. At the end of each day, I posted my progress on the closed Facebook group dedicated to the workshop, and I got to see other people's progress. It was really interesting, and it gave the whole workshop a real community feel. Now we go in to add some character to the background. Things started getting loose and fun again. It's not that I wasn't having fun before, it was just type 2 fun. Splodging colour on the background is type 1 fun. As we go along, we add flecks of colour from the background to the jar, which is reflecting all those lovely blue and teal colours. Now this here was a happy accident. I made a big thick highlight on the right of the jar, but I didn't like how it looked. So I go in with a clean brush loaded with water to clean off the middle of it, and it revealed the lovely shapes behind, which looks really cool, I think. It might be my favourite part of the piece. And finally, we go in with the brightest white highlights. It looks white on camera, but in real life, it's an off-white with a peachy undertone. And here we are, my interpretation of the Painterly Roses workshop. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.